Hi guys, my name is Ariel. I'll be your host for the night. And in a few minutes, we're all going to be doing a mic pass, so everybody's going to get an opportunity to introduce themselves. We just want to thank you for being here tonight at our fan forum, and we wanted to mention that the forums are really at the heart of what we do here at FAN, and this is how FAN started, with families affected by addiction coming together and being a source of support for one another. And tonight our topic is relationships. We're going to be hearing from two amazing women and their stories, as well as a therapist. And at the door you should have received a packet. If you didn't receive a packet, can you please raise your hand and we will bring one over. That's going to have a lot of important information as far as save the dates and a volunteer form. She's coming around right now. And we also wanted to remind you guys, we do have a resource table right back there. It has our registration for Run Drugs Out of Town, which is a really fun event that we have over the summer. Our next event coming up is March 6th. That's going to be our Black Balloon Day at Christ Lutheran Church in Sterling Heights. We have the flyers back there as well for that. June 17th is Run Drugs Out of Town at Fraser High School. If you've ever been to that before, you know it's a really good time. It's a really good opportunity for us all to come together and work for a good cause. You can register in the back. There's also a registration form. And you can put a team together. It's a really fun event. Then August 31st, we have Overdose Awareness Day. That's going to be right here at Paradox Church. October 17th is our annual Fall Fest at Palazzo Grande. And then October 24th, we're going to have our forum instead of the 17th because we have Fall Fest that day. Like I said, in the back of the room, we have that resource table. There's also books that you are welcome to check out and bring back whenever you're done reading them. We want to talk a little bit about our family recovery coaching program, which you guys saw about in the video. That's available for family members to provide support and guidance if you have a loved one struggling with addiction. If there's any family recovery coaches here, can you please stand up so that we can see where you are? I can't see anything. Hey girl. Okay. She's a rock star. I love her. And then we also have our peer recovery coaching program that's available for individuals who are struggling with substance use. And it's definitely something very important here at FAN. If there's any peer recovery coaches here, will you please stand up? Or raise your hand. Reach out to any of these people if you or somebody that you know is interested in receiving some of these services. We also have a naloxone distribution program. It's very important to carry Narcan for everybody. We have a Narcan table right outside the doors where you can receive Narcan. We also have Narcan trainings available, virtual and in person. Almost every forum we have a Narcan training right in this room before the forum begins. Okay, so we are here to help. We know this process isn't always easy. Feel free to reach out to any FAN staff member who is here tonight and get connected to resources that fit your needs. Is anybody here for their first FAN forum tonight? If you are, raise your hand and we have welcome bags for you. Thank you for joining us. We're going to come around and pass out welcome bags. It's just going to have a couple more resources. Also, we do have a Facebook page, so please feel free to follow us. Please share our posts if you're able to, so that we can kind of start to build more people. We do have food now at our forum, so we're hoping that kind of brings people in. And before we begin with our speakers, we're going to do a pass the mic. So that's going to be kind of a time where you can introduce yourself and share why this topic is important to you. We want to keep it brief so that we have enough time for all of our speakers. But we'll pass the mic. You got it? Perfect.
I'm Laura. I'm one of your guys' speakers, so you guys will hear why it's so important to me when I actually get to speak to you guys.
I'm Wes. I'm an addict in recovery.
I'm Lauren. I'm your other speaker. I'm Penny, I'm here to support my family.
I'm Kim, I'm in long-term recovery. I'm here for me, my son, and my niece who has lost her son.
My name's Rob, I'm an alcoholic addict.
Hi, my name is Lana, and I'm here to support FAN.
I'm Remy, I'm in recovery.
I am Dee, I'm in recovery.
I'm Amber, I'm also in recovery.
I am Christine. I'm here from Henry Ford Maplegrove Center to speak this evening and support FAN in any way that we can in the recovery community.
Hello everyone, I'm Sam and I'm in recovery and always will be.
Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a peer recovery coach with FAN, and I'm here to hear the speakers talk about this topic today.
Stacy, alcoholic addict. I'm here to get educated.
Hi there, I'm Ron, and I am recovering alcoholic, and I am here to get tips on long-term recovery.
Hi, I'm Tom, I'm here to support myself.
I'm Carol, I'm here to support my son as well. I'm Kim, I'm in recovery and I'm here to support FAN.
Hi, I'm Jean-Pierre, I'm in recovery and I'm here to support FAN.
I'm Adriana from Addison Recovery. When I seen on the fan forum page on Facebook that relationships were going to be the topic tonight, I was really interested in it.
I'm Sam, I'm an addict. On the 27th, I'll have 15 months sober.
Hi, my name's Dennis. I'm an addict. I'm in recovery, and this is my first FAN meeting.
Hi, my name's Kathy. I'm Dennis's mom, and it's my first FAN meeting too. We've been down a long road going on over 10 to 15 years, and I'm really excited to be here.
I'm Felicia, I'm an addict in recovery.
Hey, I'm Brian, I'm in recovery.
My name is Spencer. I'm here for my brother Jordan.
I'm Lisa, I'm in recovery.
I'm Mike, in support of my daughter.
Carl Tidman, I'm in recovery for FAN.
Shane, I'm a peer coach with FAN, and I'm here to support the community.
I'm Britton, and I'm in recovery.
Hi, I'm Frankie, I'm the peer coach supervisor for FAN and I'm also a person in long-term recovery.
My name is Trish. My son has had a substance abuse disorder for about 10 years, and I'm here to learn more about relationships.
Hi, my name's Nick, and I'm in recovery.
Hi, my name is Erica. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I'm here because relationships are hard, so maybe someone can help me. Yes.
Hi, my name is Anthony. I'm a person in recovery. I work for Hope Not Handcuffs, and I'm here to learn about relationships in recovery.
My name is Kathy. I also work with Hope Not Handcuffs, and I'm here to learn and support.
Good evening, my name is Alan, I'm the Director of Human Resources at FAN. On the way here, I was thinking about the topic, relationships. Sometimes relationships will end in heartbreak, so I was thinking to myself, is it better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all? And then I thought to myself, I will always want to love, despite the consequences in life that we experience, because with love, you can accomplish anything. And so that's kind of why I'm here, and I want to learn more about it and heal with all of you here in the community. Thank you.
Clark, in recovery, and redirect case manager.
Gary, long-term recovery, here to support FAN. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lou. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'm grateful to be sober 200 days today.
Keith, alcoholic addict.
My name's Chris, I'm a coach for FAN and a person in recovery.
Don Chenard, person long-term recovery, peer recovery coach, comeback team member.
Hi, my name's Bobby. I'm an addict in recovery.
Hi, Walt. Here to support FAN.
Mike, addict in recovery, my first FAN meeting.
Life in recovery. Hi, my name is Sue. I'm a family recovery coach, and I'm here to support FAN and.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm here to support my son and learn more about him.
My name's Terry. I'm a family recovery coach.
I'm Donna, and I'm here to support my son.
My name's Weston, I'm in recovery.
My name's Lisa. I'm with Hope on Handcuffs Call Center.
My name's Marie, and I'm here to learn more about relationships.
Hi, my name is Sandy. I'm here to support you.
Kim Bethel, woman in long-term recovery, and Hope and Handcuffs director.
Rodney Wolf, peer recovery coach here.
I'm Dean Duffy. I'm the communications director at FAN. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that we have all this support here tonight. In 2016, which ironically my co-speaker was one of my treatment techs. So hey, she remembers what a mess my life was, especially when it came to relationships. And that's when I got introduced to recovery and the 12 steps, and it took a couple years, but now I have the sobriety that I do. But for 10 years leading up to that, I was into abusive relationships. They were very emotionally and verbally abusive, but also physically abusive. They were both with other addicts. And that was hard, and it fed my addiction and my relapses after my first time in treatment, because it was really easy for me to be a victim of other people's shitty behavior towards me, to only focus on other people's behavior towards me and use it as an excuse, and also not to focus on how I showed up in relationships for healthy people, like my parents and my daughter. My oldest just turned 13 today. And just people in general, my coworkers, my friends, and it kept me sick for a long time. So I had to sort that out the hard way. I literally ran away from my first ex I have a daughter with, so he's still in my life. My second ex I literally ran away from on the streets and put myself back into treatment. And that's when I moved to Macomb County, and like try to throw myself in the program, do everything right. And thankfully I went into the center of 12-step fellowships and surrounded myself with people in recovery that had what I wanted. And it wasn't like fancy clothes or nice cars, those are cool. Those come when you're not spending all your money on drugs and alcohol. But that seemed at peace with themselves, seemed like they had relationships that were meaningful and healthy, that they felt supported in, that they were supportive in. And I surrounded myself with people like that, and got to know them, and ended up marrying one of them. And he is actually who taught me a lot about how to be healthy in a relationship. He's a good man. He's also in recovery. I don't recommend early sobriety relationships. That just happens to be how mine started. But we ended up getting married. We've been married for almost 4 years. We have 2 children. And he was the first person that I was ever with that like showed me how to love and how to show up, and he learned that from recovery, from the principles of 12-step programs. Like the step 1 principle is honesty. And I had never been in a relationship that was totally honest. Sometimes it was explicit lying. I mean, I think that comes with the territory. But a lot of times it was like just not being honest about how we felt. Not being vulnerable, you know, not like asking for help. Things like that is also dishonesty. And we were already dating during my last relapse, and well, first of all, he also knew boundaries, which is super important for relationships and recovery, I learned. But he gave me one more chance to like support me if I wanted to go to treatment, or like get on, you know, like he also has to like protect his sobriety. So, but this is a hard topic. I feel like it's like my whole heart on the line. But he like showed up, and you know, he put my well-being first, and he said to me, like, it's time for you to be a mess. And like no one had ever said that to me. He's like, you're not gonna get better unless you're honest, and you're not being honest if you're not talking about how hard this is. Because every other attempt at recovery, I would like come in and I'd want to be perfect at it. And I'd want to like ace it, you know, and I just wanted you to think I was okay, and it's all better now. I put it down 7 days ago, so like I've got this under control, and I wanted to convince myself of that. And he was like, that's not how this works. This isn't how it works for recovery, and this isn't how it works in a relationship. If I don't know what's going on with you, I can't support you, I can't love you. And that was a big lesson for me, because I feel like up to that point, the messes were being made in relationships together through using, through abuse, through betrayal, you know. And this was like, this is how we connect, and this is how we share some sort of intimacy. Is like, it's not just like physical intimacy, right? It's like the intimacy that's involved when you're willing to be vulnerable with somebody and be honest with them and trust them. Trust that they're gonna have your back. And there's a lot of faith that goes into it. And like 12-step programs are a faith-based program. I know not everybody uses 12-step programs, but that's how I've recovered. And faith is a huge piece. And I think it's easy to want to come in and have it just be like faith in this direction, you know, and that's hard enough. But like when people start challenging you to have faith in other people, we're all like, well, on the other hand, you know, like, I got this. You know, it's hard to trust other people, especially depending on what our bottoms have looked like, what our experiences have looked like. Another thing that I had to learn, and thankfully, my husband is a very, like, I love my husband, so I just think he's the best. We've been married almost 4 years, and I still get like this. He was going to come tonight, and he would be so embarrassed right now, so I'm glad he didn't. When I gush over him, he gets so uncomfortable. But he really is the best. So I think, like, with him, we've always had like a mutual respect. We're both in recovery, so we understand that, like, recovery has to come first. So, for example, today is my oldest daughter's 13th birthday. Don't worry, we've spent the last 48 hours straight celebrating her, so it is okay that I left her for 2 hours. But she did sort of act like the world was coming to an end, and so they were all going to come. The whole family was going to come tonight. But then my husband, one of his sponsees, recently relapsed and just got out of detox today and was moving into a new 3-quarter house and was going to a meeting. And my husband wanted to show up for a sponsee, and I'm like, well, what are we going to do with the toddlers, you know? And my 13-year-old, whose birthday it is watching our 2 toddlers for an hour, because at first she was like, it's my birthday. And then I was like, okay, like, this is why we're asking, you know, our friend who she knows relapsed, and then she's like, tell Johnny it's fine. Tell him it's fine. I'll watch him for an hour. I want him to go see Mark, because that's the kind of family that we have. Like, recovery comes first. So my daughter on her 13th birthday is watching her 2 little siblings for an hour, so my husband can be at a meeting and I can be here. And it's hard sometimes to like spread ourselves out like that, but we realize that, like, if we don't put recovery first, then like we're not showing up to the relationship. You know, it's like sometimes we do just want to stay home and spend time with each other, but there is not going to be each other if we're not doing this first. And the time that we do have together is better and more meaningful and deeper and stronger because we're working a program, because we're showing up for other people, because we're staying sober. And that has not failed us in our relationship. I also had to learn a lot about boundaries with other people, though. I was not good at that, and I don't think any victim of abuse is like to blame for their abuse, but in recovery I found I got some of my power back. Like the steps empowered me. When I was able to find my part in it, it wasn't like, how is that your fault? It was like, my part in it was that I wasn't in these relationships anymore, and I was still behaving like that, not trusting people like that, bringing it into healthy relationships. And that was my part in it. And so, like, recovery told me, like, you don't have to live like that anymore. But also, boundaries are probably going to be helpful in this arena. You know, like, in recovery, we're amongst people. Some people are getting better. Some people are still sick. And that's just like humanity too, you know, like some people are better than others or in better places than others. So I learned through working the 12 steps, having a lot of difficult conversations, being in a lot of difficult situations without an escape, how, again, to be honest, but also how boundaries work, because for so long I thought that this is how boundaries work. I figure out what my boundary is, I set it, I tell you, and then you decide not to trample my boundary. The end. Like, that's really how I thought it worked. Like, my job was to decide what my boundary was and tell you. And then if you cross my boundary, I was either like enraged or your victim, and like the world was so unfair. What I found out in recovery is that, like, that's not how boundaries work. How it works is I set my boundary, there's a consequence, and I don't have to like tell you that, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be explicit, but like, if this happens, then this happens. And it's my responsibility to make sure then this happens. It's not your responsibility to respect my boundary. I hope that you do. I really do. We should all probably respect each other's boundaries, but like a lot of people don't. And so if you don't respect my boundary, then I make a decision and take action on that. I don't wait around for you to do it, to change, to do better, be better. I can't rely on that, and all that's going to happen from that is I'm going to be angry, distrusting, resentful, and probably, if I get enough of that, relapsing. And I just can't, I don't have that luxury today. I don't. I will die. I am a low-bottom addict. I went from having a beautiful daughter, a full ride to law school, like good relationships with people, to being homeless, beaten, literally starving, penniless, like begging for like a week scholarship in sober living, you know, and just trying to figure out how this happened. And I don't ever want to live like that again, and I don't have to, you know. But people are a weak spot for me and probably for a lot of us. And so I've had to practice that a lot in friendships, in work. It's like, if this happens, then I take action. And I don't have to be anyone's victim anymore. And that is really empowering for a survivor of domestic violence. I don't really like talking about that too much. If anybody like wanted to talk about it one-on-one, please let me know. I get real uncomfortable. I just found out on stage talking about it, so please bear with me. I was like, I'm gonna go tell this part of my story, and I really don't want to right now. So it was rough. It was terrible. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that was a big one. It was a big one to miss, and I was like, okay, do you have like a workbook? Like, do you have like an assignment you're gonna grade? You know, like, I don't know. Like, if I knew how to do that, you know, and they're like, it just takes time, and I'm like, I don't have time. You know, like, I'm an addict. We don't wait around for anything. That's like the whole point. We want it right now and more. So, and they were just like, no, you know, and it took a couple more years of relapsing, where it was like, there is no quick, fast, easy thing. Like, so much growth, so much beauty comes from walking through the uncomfortable, through at least one experience of blind faith in another person, in a higher power, Like, I've only ever had to have blind faith like once, because then it worked. And every time after that, as long as I'm showing up and I'm being honest and vulnerable, if I'm being of service to others, if I have integrity, you know, if I'm showing up with these principles, like, it's not going to fail me. And I only had to do that one time, not sure if it was going to work with other people, with my higher power, and see that it worked. That every experience after that, like, I can just build off of that. I don't have to ever go into anything blindly again. And it doesn't make it easier, but it's always worth it. So I guess like my takeaway is like, do the hard shit and it's worth it, you know? And I wish that wasn't the answer. I was real mad when I figured out that was the only answer. I tried lots of other attempts, but yeah, that was the only one. But it's been totally worth it. I live a beautiful life today, and I'm so blessed. I have so many beautiful relationships. So yeah, I think that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Lauren. I remember watching you when you first came in and just seeing your growth is so beautiful. We're going to have Laura up next.
I'm going to stand where Lauren stood, so the lights don't blind me. My name's Laura. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means for me is that I haven't used drugs or alcohol since February 1st, 2014. So yes, I just celebrated my 9-year anniversary, and my lovely husband is here with me, so I guess give him a round of applause because I'm going to be talking a lot about us. 9 years ago, when I decided that I was going to get clean, I was a hot mess. I was drinking a lot, doing drugs. I didn't have custody of either of my children, again, for the second time. Well, my son for the first time, but my daughter for the second time. I was getting evicted, from another house. I didn't want to be clean, but my mother had custody of my daughter and threatened to not let me see her if I didn't do something about it. My pathway is the 12 steps. They saved my life, and I went to a lot of meetings in the beginning. I got in a relationship in the beginning, which I also don't recommend, but somehow, way, shape, or form, it worked out for me. And in that time, so my husband's also in recovery, and I was like, they want me to talk about relationships, and I don't know what to say. It all seemed kind of easy. And he looked at me and goes, "Are you nuts?" I'm like, "It did." I look back and it just seemed like a breeze. And he was like, "No, honey, it was not easy." And I was like, "You know what, you're right." We had a lot of uphill battles to go through. I mean, you have two people that don't know who they are, that are trying to figure out who they are, who are trying to get clean and live life without any drugs or alcohol. At the time for me, I was fighting to get my 2 children back. Living in a 3-quarter house, didn't have a job, eventually got a job, didn't have a driver's license, had to take the bus to work, to school, with a broken foot, mind you, a couple of times. That was fun. But in that process, there's so many different factors and so many different relationships that you and the person that you're with have to tackle together. So not only are you working on your relationship, you have the relationship with your parents that you're trying to reestablish. You have the relationship with your kids that you're trying to keep intact or redevelop. You have friendships that you're trying to evolve and let people in. You have relationships with the courts, your probation officer, the people that are handling your case with your children. You have all of these relationships. Not to mention you have the parents of your children, so the other ones, that already don't like you because you're the junkie mom or the addict dad. So there's so many different relationships that you're trying to maneuver while you're just trying to figure out who the hell you are. Sorry. And at times it's exhausting. And I am not one that likes to express how I feel. My husband loves to talk. He wants to talk about what's going on. He wants to know how I feel. And thank God for that, because if it wasn't for him, I would probably not talk at all. But along the way, we have had to talk about what we would tolerate and what we wouldn't tolerate in a relationship. What is to be expected of the other person. And a lot of it has come through honesty, being open-minded with each other, and being willing to not give up on what we had started. And a lot of those principles did come from the 12 steps and other people in recovery who also had healthy relationships and were willing to sit down and talk to us about what a healthy relationship looked like. The biggest thing was him and I kept our recovery separate. I had my step groups and my meetings, and he had his step work and his sponsor and his meetings. Some of the things we did together, we never sat at the same table. There were times to where we had kids and we would have to go to different meetings on different days because one would have to stay home with the kids when the other one went to the meeting. There's a lot of give and take, and there is a lot of support from the other person. There were times where I wanted to break down because I was trying to get my kids back, and I wanted to give up, and I didn't understand why I was doing all of this work and yet my kids still weren't with me, and why things weren't going my way. And he was like the strength that I needed in that time. There were times where he was really stressed out, and I was just, you know, carefree and like, don't worry, honey, it'll be great. But I really had to think about it, because although today our relationship is very honest and loving and nurturing and all of that, there were times to where we had to really let go of some character defects and you know, really work on what a healthy relationship was together. We have different parenting styles. We have different communication styles. We have different love languages, you know. He's touchy-feely. I am not. Do not hug me. I will cook for you, though, and I will tell you how awesome you are. So there's a lot of things that we had to do. You know, and he has a son, my bonus son, who is amazing, and I have 2 kids. And once I got my kids back, that was a whole nother process. And it was wonderful. He had to do everything I had to do for me to get my kids back. The drug tests, the home visits, the everything, all of that, he had to do along with me. And he was very supportive and was like, absolutely, I will do that. And we did it together, and it was great. And now we have 3 beautiful children. My daughter, who we have full time, she's 16. She's a competitive cheerleader and keeps us on our toes. We have his son, my bonus son, who is also 16. He is a straight A student, a very loving, gentle kid. And then we have my son Jackson, who is 11, that we share 50-50 custody with his dad. And that was not easy either, because in the beginning of that, his dad had custody of him. I was trying to get visitation. He was not an easy man to work with, and didn't want my son around, you know, my now husband. So we had to jump through a lot of hoops for that. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, my son. But over years, you know, we've dealt with all these personalities. We have a son's mom, we have my son's dad, and then my daughter, her dad's really never been around. So we really haven't had that personality there. But we've had to do a lot of co-parenting together. And we sit at baseball games and in tournaments with my son's dad and his family, who I think at one point in time wished death upon me. And they're seriously like a second family. You know, his son's mom was very supportive and is a great co-parent with us as well. So through the process, there was a lot of times to where I think I wanted to give up. And there was a lot of times to where, you know, a lot of people have always told me, you have to pick your battles, Laura. And that's probably the greatest piece of advice I think I've ever been given in my life when it comes to other relationships is pick your battles, you know. You can nitpick every little thing, but why? You know, is it just irritating you for the moment, or is this something that you have to set a boundary up with? You know, is this really worth the fight? And that's probably been my saving grace with establishing a healthy relationship, because I wanted to fight about everything. You know, I don't like the way you looked at me. What'd you say? But like being able to pick my battles today has helped me with my teenage children who know everything. It's crazy. That's a whole nother topic in itself. And also be able to just pick my battles with my husband. There's just sometimes, I mean, people in recovery, we just have bad days, you know? We just have bad days, and we don't understand why, and it could be work that's making us mad, it could just be we woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or it could be one of the kids that's driving us crazy, but we just have bad days. And for me, I have enough battles going on in my household that he is the last person that I want to battle. That is my safety net. You know, that's the person that I can go and vent to, and I'm going to talk to, and he's going to listen, hopefully without getting as hyped up as I am, and offer me some, you know, solid advice or just a hug when I actually need one, and we can go on about our day. So when everything else in the world seems crazy and work's driving you nuts, you have to have a... So it's probably better that you're just open and honest right in the beginning about those things, and eventually you guys can joke about them later. But I'm trying to... I don't know, it's really hard. We've developed this point in our relationship to where he finds what he likes to do, and he loves to hunt. So every fall, he jets away to the cabin, and he's hunting every weekend while I'm sitting in the recliner and binge watching Netflix and hoping nobody bothers me. We have our own things. So he has hunting. I don't really have a hobby. I have a whole box of things that I've tried throughout recovery. I've crocheted, I've painted. What else have I done? Oh, gardening, that one still stays though. I have about 1 million plants in my dining room at the moment. I like to go to dinner. I like to eat. Yeah. He supports that. I go to dinner with the girls, let him go hunting. But I think the hardest thing was trying to navigate all of those relationships so early in recovery, you know. Within the first year, I didn't have a very good relationship with my parents either. My mom, me and my mom's relationship was very, very, I didn't see it for what it was. My mother was trying to save me. I resented her for some of the things that she did really early on in recovery that I look back now and I think, man, if my mom hadn't have not let me see my daughter for that year, I would have never moved into that 3-quarter house. I would have never been given that time to focus on me, and I would have never gotten my daughter back, and I would have, I mean, I got my daughter back when I was 18 months clean, so I had 18 months that I sat there and worked on myself. And I was still so angry with my mom after that. I didn't talk to her for years. I was so mad at her. But now I look back and I'm like, man, that was exactly what I needed, you know? I had a full year to work on just me. I had a full year to go to as many meetings as I wanted to establish as many relationships as I wanted to solely go to therapy, you know, really work on me. You know, and I was so mad at my mom for that. So mad. When I got five years clean, I eventually thanked her for it. And, you know, she cried, but sometimes we don't realize that what our parents are doing is really just trying to help us, you know. So I guess that's it. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ladies. As you guys all know, this is a very hard topic. Thank you for getting vulnerable and sharing your experience with us, girls. Christine, we're going to have you wrap it up for us.
I feel like Celine Dion up here.
Make sure I cover everything. Well, I feel super privileged because some of what I'm going to talk about, these ladies have already reaffirmed for me that it's real. I'm just not making it up. I'm just not making it up. And for the woman who wanted to know if anybody was going to get up and say relationships are hard, we're 3 for 3 because they are. I don't have a brochure up here to give to anybody that says this stuff is easy. And let me start by asking you guys, those of you, when a person's in active addiction or you're living with a person in active addiction, how many of your relationships become affected by it? How many? All of them. Right, all of them. Bing, bing, bing. See, we're all on the same page already. And so it affects, as you ladies said, it affects relationships with your partners. It affects relationships with parents. I mean, any relationship that you have, children, close friends, whatever it is, and in most cases, it decimates them. It decimates them. And then a person gets to treatment, however they get to treatment, however they get their help, and now they want to fix it, right? How many times I have to tell patients, like our inpatient unit, you are not going to fix your relationship problems in 10 days up in the phone room in 30 minutes. And now post-COVID, you give cell phones, and it's 2023, so you have to give cell phone time or they're gonna revolt. And then they've got their cell phones unattended and they're up there and they're gonna get on and they're gonna fix everything because this is gonna be more comfortable when we go back home if we just fix everything. And as families, you're hoping that we fix everybody and the wand is waved and everything's gonna be good so there's no eggshells when everybody comes home. Did that work out for anybody in the recovery process? Did it work that way for anybody? No. Right, it doesn't. And so what happens is yes, quick fixes don't work in the relationship process. So I appreciate that you said it took 5 years for you to go back to your mother and say thank you. What you did saved my life, right? Because you did it on your own time, what you were comfortable with, and that part goes into expectations. Families have on their family side of the street recovery expectations and definitions of relationships, and addicts and alcoholics in the recovery process, they're working their side of the street, working to clean. They tell you how to do it, and then you're like, well, is there a checklist? Well, I'd be able to have this mastered by the time I leave treatment, right? And so what happens is that, you know, you then have to start to navigate relationships. So a couple things we're gonna talk about is the first thing a person really needs to do in that recovery process is they need to take an inventory of relationships. The inventory of relationships. And what are we inventorying? No, of the relationship. We're just looking at relationships. We have to inventory what relationships help the recovery process and what
relationships hinder the recovery process. And when I stand up here and talk about this, this is on both sides of the street. This is on the support and family side of the street, because you guys, families have relationships that don't help the recovery process or help you deal with what you're dealing with. Because families are out there dealing with as much judgment and opinions as the person who's trying to get clean and sober. It's not any cleaner on the family side of the block either, right? And so what happens is we need to inventory those relationships and figure out which relationships help the recovery process and which relationships hinder the process. And what comes after that? Once we do our inventory, and we've got helping, we got hindering, what happens to the hindering? What? You gotta make some decisions. You've got to make some decisions about some of those relationships, and that's hard. Because for some people, some of those relationships are spouses. Some of those relationships are parents. Some of those relationships, I wonder how many times I hear, but we've been best friends since we've birthed. Christine, I haven't talked to anybody else since the first grade. What do you mean you want me to go meet some people? Go out there and meet some people, right? But that is a hard thing to ask. It's a hard thing to do. And when we look at cultivating and maintaining relationships, cultivating and maintaining relationships require time and energy. They require strength and courage, and they require a person to come out of the comfort zone. So of the people in recovery, of those things I listed, how many of you loved those in the early days? How many of you had the time and energy above and beyond maintaining sobriety, or the time and energy, like, do you want to tell somebody, Christine, that's not, I don't like that, it's not comfortable. Yep. I got nothing else. I have nothing else to offer you in this process except being uncomfortable. And those in this room are nodding my head, and especially for families. Like I said, this is both sides of the street. The family has to get uncomfortable because nobody wants to go in a room for the first time and say, I raised an alcoholic and addict, and I feel good about it. No, there's not a lot of arenas you get to do that, so God bless this one, right? Right? Because people are going to say, amen, we are your tribe, we are your people, let us help you. And so that's what it takes to do those relationships, and growth and healing and recovery requires us to break down the walls and the false fronts that we have. Well, if you've spent the last 10, 15, 20 years or whatever it is in active addiction, you have put up every barrier and brick wall you can to protect yourself and protect your addiction, and somebody's asking you, like, we're gonna need you to break those down. We're gonna need you to like yourself. We're gonna need you to feel comfortable, and then go out there and make some friends. Right? And you're like, is that it? And you're like, yeah. And so that's what makes this hard. That's what makes this very difficult. And so, like I said, to end some of those relationships is the hardest thing you have to do. Or that's where you're going to continue your research, because you're going to be like, I'm going to try and do this, and then if it doesn't work out, maybe I'll try it a different way. So we have to inventory relationships, and then you have relationships you want to repair, right? So once we look at those relationships we're keeping, you're like, now I've got to repair those. But before you can repair those, what do you have to repair? Yourself. And so how long does that take? Thank you. As long as it takes. God bless the people you meet that can do it in 90, 120 days. God bless those people that can do it in 6 months to a year. And then there's people that, like, this is still going to take a little bit longer than that. Right? Everybody's on their own different timeline. We also have to set realistic expectations about that. And the people that we're trying to maintain relationships, hopefully they've made it to the helping side of the sheet, so that they can understand and have realistic expectations too. Because if we could all fix this quickly, we would. Even the non-alcoholic and addict is like, yeah, no, the ideal way is to fix this as fast as we can. What? Put it behind us, right? Because now we're not clouded. We can see in the light of day the damage, right? Right, and it's not pleasant. We also have to reach out. Anybody in here been successful in the recovery doing it home alone, families or addicts and alcoholics? No. That's pretty consistent. The message isn't going to change with that. Recovery for both families and addicts and alcoholics and repairing those relationships comes with connection. And I'm here to reiterate the same thing that the two ladies shared. The only way you can maintain connection is that I'm going to use the H word, it's called honesty. There's no way recovery happens without honesty. Anybody want to show of hands if they were successful while being dishonest? Right? You also have to understand as you begin to repair these relationships, you might get some resistance. Right? It would be nice because we want credit for sobriety right away. Like, right, we want that credit. 2 days in, 5 days in, 2 weeks in. You want the credit of the person who's done 10, 15, 20 years sober. And that's because in the first, 10, 15 days, it feels like 20, 30 years. Right? It feels like it's been forever for you, and the family, it feels like, okay, you've been clean 5 minutes. Very different timeline, time zones on each side of the street, right? And so it's important to understand, and the only way that we can deal with that resistance is, again, it's the theme, we are going to connect with other alcoholics and addicts. We are going to ask for help. We are not going to do this by ourselves. We are not going to fix it in the parking lot on your cell phone at the grocery store before you get your groceries going, right? Like we think, okay, like if I can just get this done, I can check this off my list, and then I can go to the next thing. Because that's the easier route. Okay, so we've looked at that we have to review current relationships and we have to repair relationships. And then there's the ever popular new relationships in recovery. New relationships. And the risk of relapse is the highest in the first couple months of recovery. And we look at relationships, and relationships are the top 3 reasons a person relapses. It's not a good combo. Not a good combo. And important relationships expose what we call emotional maturity. Anybody in here read Alan Berger's book about emotional maturity, 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery? He talks about emotional maturity. And emotional maturity, emotional immaturity is where we seek our value, our validation, and everything about us from somebody else. So that's where I only seek validation and my self-worth from other people. And if I don't get that validation, or if I don't get that self-worth, then I'm not worthy. And you spend all this time sacrificing yourself. The addict and alcoholic does it, and the family members. It's a natural thing even non-alcoholics and addicts do. We're not inherently taught to pat ourselves on the back. We're not inherently taught, we don't come out of the womb with self-esteem and then hope it goes well, right? Tuck and run or suck it up, buttercup, whatever the sayings are these days, right? We're all very invalidating sayings, by the way. Anyway, we're not taught. We're taught to look for things externally versus internally. And what happens is that new relationships highlight that emotional maturity faster than anything else. Because when we enter into new, especially in the early recovery process, because in the early recovery process, you're trying to figure out who the heck you are. You don't know if you're coming or going. You don't know what you believe. You have to reestablish your value system. You have to do that for families. They have to figure out redefine what their family is to them, what behaviors in their families are acceptable or unacceptable. It's on at both sides of the street. And what happens typically in a relationship when when somebody doesn't behave according to our expectations, we start to try, all our energy is to control that person or to submit to their will when it's too exhausting to try to control that person. And then what happens is we become emotionally distant or we stonewall. And then what happens in the relationship is that any relationship that involves your partner to behave in a certain way for you to feel good typically doesn't work out. The research shows that that's a no. So once we grow up emotionally and we increase our self-esteem and we can increase our self-worth and we get more self-confident, then we can go out there and we can start to establish new relationships. And one of the recommendations in starting to build relationship is the ever popular platonic relationship. We're just gonna go out there and we're just gonna make some friends, right? And sometimes that can be difficult too, because you wanna know how many times I hear in treatment, especially the women, Christine, I don't get along with other women. 2 weeks ago, we had a nice couple in treatment unbeknownst to us, till they got there, and he said, Christine, I don't know any men in recovery. And I said, I don't know the statistics, but I think in the Metro Detroit area, there's thousands. There's thousands out there. You're bound to just bump into one if you simply go out there and you don't even have to look. You could probably just bump into one. And so, but we start with the platonic relationships. So that's friendships, that's coworkers, that's maybe friends that you want to maintain relationship. Or I tell people, I don't care if you care what the 12 steps have to offer, go make a friend down there. And if you don't want to stay for the meeting, try and go to the meeting before the meeting or hit the meeting after the meeting. Go late. If you don't want the message exactly in that hour, go make some friends before or after. Because I do appreciate that making friends at any age in life is a hard thing to do. And it's same with also families, right? If you've been hiding in your house because you don't want to go out and talk to friends and family because they might start asking questions and wonder why Jimmy hasn't been seen in the last 5 years, you then want to go meet other families where you can talk about that. Well, we don't know where he is. And so that's where you go out and you make those platonic relationships. And then, like I said, then once we've grown in our recovery, we're comfortable with ourselves, we've kind of mastered the platonic relationship, then we kind of put our toe in the romantic pool. But that's when I tell people, let's pick up some extra support then, in case it doesn't go exactly the way you want it to go. So we inventory the relationship, we repair the relationship, and we reestablish new relationships. Preferably starting with platonic, the research suggests.